I said it earlier, that was a tough tournament for me. I was kind of brought in and very much on the fringes, and to get a surprise start in the round of 16 and to respond that way. And the way like everyone celebrated, like they understood what that meant to me, and they were just
Yeah.
happy for the team and for me. And it was just like a special, 10, 15 seconds.
Welcome to another episode of Straight Like That, the podcast hosted by me, Instagram's favorite half brown boy, Camille. Today we got a big guest, DMV legend, current baller in MLS, Jeremy Ebobisse, man. Welcome to the show. Thank you for coming. But first, let's shout out the sponsors. Rory Love and Company, a candle, wax, and room spray company based in New Orleans. Everything is organically made with a variety of different scents to choose from. Link in bio to check them out, and be sure to check them out during the holiday seasons for some cool specials and all that. Tasty Mates, a gourmet gummy suite based in London, England. Organically made gummies that come in a few different flavors. They just recently put out a new passion fruit flavor. So be sure to check them out, link in bio for that. And Wallet Sleeve, your industry leaders in apparel that prevents pickpocketing. Their sleeves are designed to hide your personal belongings anywhere on your arm or ankle while traveling, running, working out, or simply going about your day. Coming in a pack of three colors with embedded RFID anti technology, they are currently Amazon's bestseller and a steal right now for $9.99. Find their store on Amazon and follow their IG at wallet.sleeve for helpful travel tips to prevent pickpockets and to see some cool videos of those getting caught in act. So let's get straight to it, man. Why football? How'd you get into it?
Yeah, I think for me, it's a family thing. I mean, dad's from Cameroon. Cameroon's a big football nation.
Hmm.
They were in France. I was born in France, so my dad and my mom were in France. They had my brother and I, and they were there during the '98 World Cup, which was obviously very triumphant for France. So,
Hmm.
just kind of grew up around this footballing environment, and getting into DC or the suburbs of DC where I grew up just felt like that was gonna be my natural path. My brother, who's 6 years older than me, was also playing, and I just wanted to be like him. So I had a ball with me everywhere I went, and naturally fell in love with it, and didn't know how far it would take me, but kind of had these childish dreams as a kid, and eventually they got, eventually they became more attainable, and that just kind of fueled my passion to take it more seriously.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So did your parents play too?
Dad played in high school. That
Okay,
was kind of the extent of it. Mom is
okay.
always been a fan, but yeah, it's really my brother and I who took it seriously. And then brother played in college, D3 at Williams in Massachusetts, went to a
Hmm.
couple Final Fours, and then I obviously went to Duke and was able to have a professional career. But soccer runs in the family, football runs in the family, and I'm grateful for it.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So how is football over in the DMV area? Because I was born outside DC in Arlington, and
Okay.
then I went to GW as well for 4 years. So I'm kind of familiar with that area. A couple of my friends and Kobe obviously tells me a lot about the DMV football scene. So how is it over there? How'd you like that? And kind of how did it influence your game overall?
Yeah, I mean the DMV is a super international area, which
Hmm.
when it comes to the game, it's that's the best environment to be in. You have so many different styles of play. You have teams that, yeah, you have teams coming from Northern Virginia, Maryland, Baltimore, like all over the DMV and beyond. And so you have no choice but to compete and to show out for, who you're playing for. On my team, we had guys, the older we got, the more guys came in from all over the state of Maryland, all over Northern Virginia, because we were trying to build a super team.
Hmm.
But I would say it's not quite as technical as like exclusively technical as maybe some of the California teams that I played growing up, some of the California ODP teams and Region 4 teams, but it's a good balance of technical, physical, dirty at times, but really just developing you at a young age to experience whatever it is that whoever it is that you're going to play.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So in high school, were you playing both high school and club?
So the first 2 years, I did 3 years of high school. First two
Okay.
years, I did high school and club. my high school team was amazing. I went to Walter Johnson Public School in Bethesda, Maryland, and
Hmm.
our my freshman year on varsity, we went to the state final. We were undefeated, and then we lost in the state final, which to this day is one of the more devastating losses that I've had in my career, just because there's there's something different about playing for your school at
Yeah.
that young of an age and really starting to represent something more than yourself on the field. Uh, and then my final year of high school, I moved over to my team moved over to Development Academy, which meant that we wouldn't be able to play the high school season any longer. But I'm okay with the various paths I had. Um, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So while in high school, did you always know that you wanted to go college slash professional?
No, I wanted to go pro first.
Okay.
Uh, One of my teammates had actually signed in Europe at 15. So I think that opened my eyes to the possibilities of signing at a young age. And I felt
Hmm.
like I was able to do that, kind of just being naive and ambitious.
Hmm.
I had some opportunities to go train it overseas and they went well, but for one reason or another, the deals were never able to go through. So yeah, I figured I would just write my own path and kind of follow that wherever it went. That took me to Duke for a year and a half. And I think looking back, like, would I be, if I was able to sign at Fulham when I was 15, would my ceiling be higher? Probably. But could I have also been an academy bust in England? It's a possibility anywhere you
Right.
go.
Right.
And the tools that I learned going to college, on the field, off the field, the way I had to grow, I think it's made me a well-rounded person today, someone that's continuing to grow on and off the field. And, I think there's still a lot to get out of my footballing career. So, yeah, different paths for everyone. And that's what I try to tell the young guys.
Yeah, for sure. Go ahead and kind of talk to us a bit more about, these trials overseas that you had. You just brought up Fulham. What was it like over there, and what was, the difference that you noticed from playing in the DMV and all that while also playing over there?
Yeah, I think once I got there, I realized that it wasn't really a game that you played for fun. It
Yeah.
was, I mean, these kids were 14, 15, but they were fighting for their lives every day. There was
Yeah.
still in the locker room, but once they got out on the field, it was honestly every man for themselves, which is a tough dynamic to have in a team sport. But when I was training with the 16s and 16s at the time, they were just playing friendlies to get them ready for the 18s and get them their scholarships into kind of the 18 setup.
Hmm.
And each year, I want to say maybe four or five guys, no more than 10 guys move up from the 16s to the 18s if for no other reason because you're kind of merging two age groups. You got 17
Hmm.
teams in that. And so they know that they have, just about a year left to prove to their clubs that they're worthy of that spot. If not, they got to go out and find another good academy that can give them that same career trajectory. So it was, you could tell, like people were fighting, people were yelling in ways that I've never been yelled at on the field. People were tackling and training in ways I had never seen someone tackled.
Hmm.
Trialists coming in were taken as threats.
Yeah.
That I was welcomed. I was fortunate. There weren't a ton of strikers on the team at the time, but there was a center midfielder that came in and he gave off a bad impression the first day, and I just saw people coming at his ankles all week, and I never
Wow.
saw him again. So yeah, there's a different intensity for that young of an age. I think at a certain level in the US, it starts to catch up, and I think some of the younger players who are signing at 14, 15 are starting to understand what that's like to fight for a living at such a young age. But it's
Hmm.
different, sure.
Yeah, yeah. So you were able to bring kind of would you want to call it a stronger mentality after all those trials back to the US. And, when you went to Duke, were you kind of more locked in, did you think?
Yeah, I was able to bring a stronger mentality coming back in. I had had this experience. I wanted it to continue. I mean, I went
Mm,
August before my sophomore year of high school, and it was great. I went for 2.5 or 3 weeks, and then I went back November of that same year because they wanted to kind of show me around again and bring my family over and try to convince us that that was the right place for me to continue my development as a
hmm.
young kid. And So I had this hunger that even though after that November trial and going through lawyer documents and things like that, even though knowing that it wasn't going to happen anymore, I still had this hope. I
Yeah, of
still
course.
wanted to keep them wanting me. So that kind of drove me to apply some of the same standards I learned throughout the rest of my academy tenure and youth tenure. I think getting into Duke, it was just such a shock for me. I mean, I came in a little bit younger. There were different ambitions on the team. Some guys, were in their fourth year there and not pursuing a professional career. So while they still wanted to win games, the hunger was much different. I also came in and I didn't fit into some of the plans for the team off the jump. And so I
Hmm.
had to work my way back up from kind of a deficit. And that took a hit with the standards that I wanted to kind of bring to the team. But it all kind of started to come to a full my second year and what would be my last year.
Okay. And how was, that last year at Duke? What kind of made you decide that that was your time to, try to go pro? And then kind of talk to us more about that whole process of going pro, about the super draft and all of that.
Yeah, it was honestly pretty unclear as
Hmm.
to when that season ended, where I would be going. I just felt like college wasn't there are different paths, as I mentioned. For some players, I would recommend staying 4 years in college. I think you can have a great career and you
Hmm.
can grow in a different environment, but it wasn't for me. And I felt like I'd given myself and the people around me a lot in my year and a half there, and I'd grown, but I didn't feel as though going back for a third season, I would put myself in a position to reach what was left of my ceiling. And so I
Gotcha.
decided to take a year off or a semester off and pursue professional opportunities. So during that time, I trained with Jacksonville Armada and then the NASL. I trained with Hoffenheim's reserve team. I trained with Le Havre in France. I even went to Denmark. I just kind of went around the world to
Oh, wow.
see what was out there. I played
Hmm.
with US under 20s, had a couple of tournaments, and in July, August of that year, I decided that I wouldn't be going back for my junior season. It was unfortunate the timing because I know I left the team a little bit hanging, but I felt like this was what I needed to do. And yeah, I was fortunate to sign with MLS in August of 2016. It was a little unconventional at the time, so I went on loan to Charleston Battery for 6 weeks. Got some games in USL, really my first experience around a lot of men. And then I got drafted in 2017, January 2017, and was reunited with a lot of guys that I played with in college, youth days, and youth national team. So that was a cool experience.
Yeah, yeah. So how was, the difference between your time at Duke, and then in the MLS in terms of football? Kind of was it a big jump for you? Did you struggle kind of coming in, or did you kind of find it easy?
No, that was a massive jump.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think striker is one of the hardest positions to play in this league for a few reasons. Um, there's a lot of money invested at striker,
Hmm.
so you have some of the best players or the most reputable players coming in. You're judged with a ruthlessness of whether you scored or didn't.
Yeah.
Whereas I think other positions, it's a little bit more subjective. If a coach likes you or sees what he wants to see in a positive light, then you can be in the clear. So, and then the speed of play and the center backs were just much bigger, much stronger. If you think about college and, you think these 22-year-old seniors are imposing figures. I mean, think about the best of the best 22-year-old seniors that now have 5, 6 years experience. If you're talking about the domestic center backs, and then if you talk about the international center backs, it's just maybe a different profile, but again, a massive jump. So I think I had to get used to the speed of play. I was around a lot of really talented veterans, so you know, to the extent that they were able to, like, not taking away focus from themselves, but they would definitely mentor me and make sure that I was growing, even though I wasn't getting a lot of playing time. And there were times when I looked at their games and I was like, yeah, I'm not ready to step into this game. Like if I was called upon, I don't know what I would do in this exact situation. And that's probably selling myself a little bit short. Like you kind of it's sink or swim once you're in those
Hmm.
situations. Maybe I would have been fine, but I definitely was aware enough to take a step back for the first few months And then as I started to really train better and grasp the concepts, then I started to, become hungrier for opportunities and make the most out of them when they did come.
Yeah, yeah. So you mentioned how obviously that position is heavily can be heavily criticized. There's a lot of pressure on you and everything. Did that ever affect your mental, going into trainings, going into games?
It does. It does, even to this day. I
Okay.
think you learn how to deal with it and continue to perform to the best of your abilities. But I think, like, first and foremost, you just have to tell yourself, ask yourself, are you giving everything you can? Are you locked in? And if you are, then you can kind of live to fight another day. If you kind of can realize that, you're not, you're holding back, you're not applying yourself, then I think that's when like the honest reflection comes in. But, you know, early on in my days, like we went to qualifying with the U20 team. I had been leading the line for about a year. I'd had, a dozen goals in like maybe 20 or so games. So I was in good form. And then in the qualifying tournament, I didn't score. I had a couple assists, but didn't score. And I went from being the best striker prospect in the country or whatever to, the guy who didn't know how to kick a soccer ball.
Yeah.
And that's one example. And then I snuck onto the U20 World Cup team that following summer, and I was completely on the outside looking in. I mean, I was not getting into games. I was like an afterthought in practice. And I mean, injuries, red cards, suspensions happened, and I got my opportunity and I took it. And the team, strikers are only as good as their team. So the team really did lift me up in the moment of need. But, that's just like one example to internalize kind of that outside narrative. And then, I mean, I could even point as recently as like this year is not my most prolific season for any number of reasons. I think I take a lot of that on my own shoulders because that's who I am. Like I'm more critical of myself than anyone reasonably could be.
Hmm.
That's not to say I'm oblivious to the external factors that are complicating the situation as well. But yeah, I don't actively seek the noise, but I know it's out there.
Hmm.
And I acknowledge that if you're going to play striker, if you're going to, you be touted as the guy, then it comes with a certain set of expectations. And although I think that I am doing things that help, is supposed to be helping the team get by in what has been a really bad season for us, uh, I recognize that people are going to look at it from a very black and white lens, and is he scoring at the rate that he can that he
Hmm.
has? And so yeah, the noise is always there, and you find a way to deal with it and trust that you will get back to your best form, not for selfish reasons, but for reasons that'll also help the guys around you and help your team.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. So it's good. I mean, it sounds like basically you have a very, if you want to call it a healthy way of blocking out this external noise and everything, kind of focusing on yourself and your team because you really can't control all you can.
It's a work in progress. You
Hmm.
know, I think we're all human,
Of
and if
course.
people are commenting on what you're doing, sometimes crossing lines, uh, it can be heavy.
Hmm.
And you're not getting the results. I mean, when you're getting the results and things aren't bouncing your way, then it's a little bit easier to block out. When you're not getting the results, things also aren't bouncing your way. It can get heavy, but you're not you're not going to make it very far in this industry if you're not able to package it to some extent, and just deal with some of the negativity. And you know, you just keep all that in mind when things are back to flowing in the right direction.
Yeah, yeah. So let's talk about your time so far in this industry, if you want to call it the MLS. So how was everything over in Portland your first couple of seasons?
Yeah, the first couple of seasons in Portland were challenging. First, yeah, first 6 months didn't really see the field. I was on the bench, but not seeing the field. And although I was like content to observe at times and learn the game and learn what I'd be stepping into, I was still watching a lot of my teammates from youth national teams, college start to get opportunities. So I wanted opportunities myself naturally.
Hmm.
I started to get some chances and help the team, which was great. We won the West regular season and lost, kind of got upset in the playoffs. So just an up and down first year, but a lot of growth. Second year was a huge step back. I mean, we had a new coach come in, we had a new striker come in, we still had the tenured striker. So I wasn't even making rosters for the first half of the year. And come summer of that year, I wasn't even making the starting lineup for the reserve team. So it was there was a big question mark over, the longevity of my career.
Hmm.
And things started to turn around. I mean, again, you just try to work hard and hope for the best and work smart too. And things turned around for me that year. Again, there was like a group of 4 to 5 guys in that locker room that were always on my case in the best way possible, just making sure that I was focused, making sure that I was finding a way to be impactful in training and push the guys ahead of me and push the center backs that I was playing against. And by the time I got my opportunity, I was able to make the most of it and started the last 10 games, went to MLS Cup against the odds. We were probably a fifth or sixth seed. Lost an MLS Cup, which was another brutal learning experience for me personally, just being involved in one of the giveaways that led to the goal. But it's all part of the development. And I think other people had more straightforward entries into the league, but I think that I had to wait for my opportunities, made me cherish them a little bit more than
Hmm.
I might have if they were just given to me before I was fully ready. And so yeah, they brought me to where I am today.
Yeah, yeah. So, and how did you end up at San Jose again
So I got traded in 2021.
in 21? Okay, and that was after the MLS is back tournament.
So that was a year after MLS is back,
Okay,
almost a year after.
okay. And how kind of was your time in San Jose right away during that transition from Portland to San Jose?
Yeah, I think coming into San Jose, I recognized that it wouldn't be Portland. We just had different infrastructure around the team, different recent history around the team as well. And I was excited to join up with, a passionate coach in Matias Almeida and seeing if we could kind of create this humble team that goes on and punches above our weight.
Hmm.
And there were reasons to believe that we could. And when I got there, I actually felt the best that I felt throughout my entire career. Sleeping well. It was just a change of scenery, something that was unknowingly very important to me.
Hmm.
And things were starting to click, and then I got an injury that basically took me out for the next 5, 6 games and completely destroyed my rhythm. By the time I was back, the team was out of playoff contention, and yeah, that season just didn't go the way we wanted to finish it off. 2022, same thing. I mean, we started off a little bit slow. The coach I came to play for, unfortunately, moved on from the club,
Hmm.
and we had an interim coach who, I built a good relationship with as well. And we tried to do the best with the situation that we were in, and ultimately, it got the best out of me personally. That was my best season. That was 17 goal season, something that unfortunately didn't do enough for the team to be successful and make the playoffs. And so then I really thought to myself, like, is 17 goals or is being prolific in front of goals worth worth it if the team isn't having success? And
Hmm.
I felt that I would rather score half that if it meant the team was successful.
Yeah.
Uh, I know that that might take a hit on the outside, but it's not. I've never been about just me, and I think that that might be, a blessing and a curse for a striker
Hmm.
because you need to be ruthless, you need to be selfish. But I, yeah, I don't know. I think I've been around pretty selfless leaders, so that's who I try to model after.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So how, I guess this season right now that's going on, you're saying is a bit difficult and everything like that. What are certain ways, I guess, you kind of do to keep, your head leveled, kind of try to be positive during, a very rough stretch of time, and games and everything like that? And kind of what kind of advice are you giving to maybe some younger guys in the dressing room with you?
I'm figuring it out.
Yeah.
It's it's been the hardest season that I've had personally. I think we are all searching for answers,
Mm-hmm.
And things I do on the regular, I mean, I meditate, I like have a therapist. Sometimes I see a sports psychologist as well. So I am bouncing things off with people that are objective, that are removed from the situation. And,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes they push me, to think differently, to acknowledge that there are, acknowledge that my perspective might be very narrow and compounding some of the frustrations. I think, to be honest, the young guys don't really know. Some of the younger guys, I'm talking like the 16 to 20-year olds, don't
Yeah.
really know what it's like to be going through this, and maybe don't understand the consequences of going through a season like this.
Mm-hmm.
So, to the extent that it's possible, I am trying to educate them, but they're young enough that they'll have time to, recover and have successful careers.
Mm-hmm.
So it's balancing it out where I don't want to put too much pressure on them because I was still playing high school ball when I was 18, and
Right, right.
but yeah, it's everyone else. I mean, is who needs to take a little bit more responsibility, myself included, in terms of just the challenges. And there's been a lot going on this year, and I just feel for some of the fans who have been there.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I see the same sets of fans every time I walk out of home games and just kind of look at each other and we just acknowledge the challenge that we're coexisting in. And there's a belief that there's another side to it.
Of
I
course.
don't
Yeah.
that the results are. I mean, there are some results that are justified, and we just didn't show up for those games. But there are a lot that we just kind of left on the table, and that those ones are harder to take, I think, and leave us much less margin for error when we do have those, you know, once in every 10 game flops where we just really don't show up.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I get that. I mean, as long as you remain positive and uplifting, that's the best you can do. And really, no one has the answers to everything. No one's really perfect. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So let's go ahead and talk about, a little bit about off the field. You seem to be very, very integrated in the community over there. Do you want to speak more about, what you do off the pitch?
Yeah, I try to be active in the community, and supporting a nonprofit here called Oakland Genesis has been something that I've done since 2021. That role has kind of taken different paths. So, the first 18 months or so, I was volunteering twice a month, going in for training sessions, going in for tutoring sessions, and really just being part of the program on a more regular basis. Since then, I've joined the board. So now I'm kind of overseeing just long-term stability and growth of the organization from finance to governance and that kind of perspective. um, Kind of got away from the things that I really appreciate about being
Hmm.
able to volunteer, which is like being close to the kids and mentoring and helping them grow. So hoping to get back to that a little bit, but also just being mindful. It's just very challenging for professionals to be rooted in communities when we could be up and traded at any moment. And
Right.
knowing when contracts and timings are going on, like it just distracts you from the things that I want to be doing, at least. So I'm really grateful for OG providing me the platform to just help kids continue to find themselves both through soccer and beyond. I mean, I co-founded Black Players for Change with a dozen or so other players in the league, still going strong. We have a new executive director who's kind of taken a little bit of the load off of the players, and just helped us kind of automate some of the processes and activation. So that's been exciting. Here in the Bay Area, there's a rich startup culture, which can sometimes get a bad rap, just in the kind of, um, I don't know, person that traffics in it, but I found a lot of beauty in the innovation. And for me, being here, being a conduit between startups and innovation, and maybe some of my nonprofits and some of my communities that aren't keen on what the latest growth opportunities are, to be able to facilitate integration of the two communities, something I take a lot of pride in. So I find ways to stay busy. If not, I mean, when I was young, I used to play video games after training, and it was not the most productive use of my time. And
Yeah.
I'm content with that development. And always trying to find the balance of how to make sure my footy is the most important thing,
Hmm.
but also I'm adding to the community that I live in and not taking from it and then leaving.
Yeah, yeah. So what kind of was the motivation behind giving back to the community and especially about Oakland Genesis, is it right? Oakland Genesis? What kind of, inspired you to want to work with kids and give back and everything like that?
Yeah, I think for me, my family has just always been uh, about community. My parents have big families, and families are extended, and it's just always about creating community everywhere that we've been. And I've had the opportunity to work with kids in the community at Duke, and like some of those experiences have really touched me. And then in Portland, same thing. And I've always wanted to use my football platform as an opportunity to bring people along. And OG's provided that for me a little bit. And I actually knew the executive director. I met him while I was on trial at Jacksonville Armada. So when I was put in contact with him through the earthquakes, it was just like a weird full circle moment where I had already had like a familiarity with the program
Right, right.
running it, and it was about understanding whether I fit into what they were trying to build, which I did.
Yeah, yeah, no, that is a full circle moment considering that was what your first time playing ish professional? Is that correct?
So Jacksonville Model was just a training stint in
Oh, the
February
training. Got you,
after my
got you.
but yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I remember, I think it was the Players Tribune. You had an article out with them. Is that correct?
yeah, I did.
So I guess that article kind of, how did that come about, really? Because I really read it, I think, for the first time a week ago, and
Mhm.
it's a lot of inspiring stuff, and I kind of related to a little bit. I even had a screenshot, and maybe I'll pull it up later. But you talked about a lot and talked about how you felt a little bit like an outsider, if you will. Kind of how did, I guess I'm all over the place, but how did that article come about? Because to me, that was a very interesting article.
Yeah, I have a marketing manager, Joanna, who wanted to get my story out in front of more, just more eyes and a bigger
Hmm.
audience. And um, MLS has this partnership with Audi, with Players Tribune to kind of showcase guys doing stuff in the community. And we pitched my story and they took it up, and then we went through the writing process. But that's just one story. That's just one group that I'm trying to impact. And the fact that I've come to realize that I'm always going to be kind of moving from community to community.
Hmm.
That from I spent 5 years in Portland. I've been here for 3 years, and I don't know what the plan is for me long term. And so I've thought about where can I have an impact that's uninterrupted, and that's taking me back to DC. So now I'm working with Over Under Initiative and through my kind of donor advised funder foundation to implement similar programs, um, maybe long-term similar programs, but for the short term, implement infrastructure so that kids can continue to play footy, can be supported by the nonprofits that are providing them the guidance through that, and really just focusing on DC again. So
Okay, so that is kind of a long-term goal for you is to kind of start to give back more back to the DMV area.
yeah, because I
Okay.
know that I'm always going to be tied to the DMV. You can't kick me out of the DMV.
For sure. All right, Jeremy, we like to do a little thing where it's, get to know the guests that we have on. So we're just gonna ask, just a couple of quick questions, and learn more about you. So basically, first one, um, what are you listening to kind of get you in that mode before any game, really?
Yeah, I it's tough. I mean, I have a playlist. It also depends on where I'm at. Like if we're going to New York, I'm trying to listen to some old school hip hop, or yeah, old school New York hip hop. If we're in LA, I'm listening to, some Kendrick, some LA rap. So
Hmm.
usually hip hop. Um, and I try to kind of curate it to the city to the extent that it's possible. If we're in Atlanta, Chicago, I mean, places that I feel like I know some people out, some music from out there. But upbeat, try to get the music going. And a lot of Afro trap as well.
Okay.
French trap, which has been good to me, getting me motivated to play and train.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Do you speak French by any chance?
Yeah, I'm fluent. I mean, I grew up in a French speaking household.
Oh, okay. Was that your first language by any way?
Yeah, it was.
Okay. So, and you speak French and English?
Speak French, English, and enough Spanish.
And no Spanish? Enough to get by, huh?
Yeah, I mean, if you drop me in a Spanish-speaking country, I wouldn't be scared to communicate or feel like
Okay. Okay, yeah, I'm trying to be like that, man. I'm doing Duolingo. I'm on a 3-day streak right now, so we'll see where
okay.
that gets me.
One of my
Um,
teammates learned Spanish exclusively off Duolingo, so yeah,
really?
yeah.
Okay, okay. All right, so if you had to pick between three cities, San Jose, Portland, and DC, which one is it?
What am I picking for?
Just overall, city, great city. Which one you picking?
I'm picking DC.
Yeah, home. You can't take you out of there, huh?
It's home, and I mean, there's a lot, there's a lot there that I still haven't even explored. I've had, a lot of time here in Portland and San Jose as an adult, but DC I've had none, and I've just appreciated it every time I've been there. So I want more out of DC for now.
Okay, okay. All right, so if it's the off season, right, and you're taking like a 10-day break from all training, everything, and you gotta go somewhere for a little holiday, where you going?
Um, Probably going to this time because it's been a long time. I'm going to Cameroon.
Oh,
I
really?
Yeah, I got to go back. It's Haven't been back since like middle school. So feeling a little detached from my roots right now. And
Hmm.
then Paris as well. They don't sound like vacation destinations, but they're special to me. So
Yeah,
it's
yeah, of
more,
course. You consider them home, huh?
yeah.
Yeah, and who you gonna take with you?
Maybe solo, maybe my brother. Usually just family in those scenarios.
Okay, okay. How about favorite away city to play in?
Toronto.
Why is that?
Toronto is just a great city. It's We haven't always had the best results there, but
Hmm.
I mean when you think about Toronto teams, they like the old Toronto teams where I came in the league. I mean, 2017 they won MLS Cup.
Hmm.
2019 they were in the final. Like these are teams that have been really tough to play against. And so the experience against, the highest of high quality on field, BMO Stadium, and how special that atmosphere was, the location, and then just everything around like Toronto as a city. It's just been it was a really nice city to spend a few days in and enjoy myself and have a good experience to measure myself against some of the best in the league.
Yeah, yeah. Is that your favorite away stadium to play in as well?
Favorite away stadium. I like Austin.
Yeah.
They always bring a lot of energy. It's tough to play there.
Hmm.
LAFC's pretty tough.
Yeah, that
But
that bank too.
yeah, when I say tough, it's a sign of respect for the environment
Yeah,
that they have.
yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
say
Okay,
those
okay, okay. Those are two good ones. I've been to an LAFC game before, and they get loud and they don't stop. So I could see how it's a little challenging sometimes.
you can't hear a lot. It's tough to
Yeah,
communicate. And if
yeah,
they're
yeah.
playing well, then it's tough.
All right, last kind of get to know question with you. A big game at home, night game too. What kind of outfit you putting on?
Depends.
Yeah.
If I'm going there's like a certain state of the season where I go all black and it's
Oh,
just
killer mode.
it's business. It's there, yeah. There's no flash. It's just in and out, get our business done and leave the creativity aside. We're going for something a little bit more straightforward. And
Hmm.
that's that's the tone for the game, no nonsense, just get out there and get the 3 points however it's done. Other days where I'll like not flashy, but I'll just experiment with some things that I picked
Yeah.
up at a local designer or whatever. I mean, I'll walk down the streets and do a lot of window shopping here in the Bay. And if there's something
Hmm.
that catches my eye, but I don't know how to dress it, I'll still take it and wait until I find the pieces to dress it with.
Okay, okay. So are you in that stress right now where it's just an all black fit?
Yeah, I try not to overuse that mode,
Hmm.
but we're entering all black mode.
Yeah. Zero dark 30, man.
Probably should have been for the last few months, but yeah, yeah, I like to keep it fresh as well
Yeah.
and make sure that I'm not just using that every game and
Yeah.
watering down what I believe it's doing to me mentally.
Yeah, 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 for sure. All right. So, quick three questions from Instagram from some of the fans. First one, what's the best piece of advice you received while being a pro?
I mean, this most simple one that you have to have a short memory as a
Hmm.
striker. If you make a chance, if you score a goal, you should probably forget about that as well and just focus on the next one. But mostly, if you miss a chance, like it is what it is. Strikers miss chances. Anyone will miss a chance. Anyone will miss a PK. It's what you do after that really matters most. And if you're just caught up on the mistake, then you're going to take yourself out the game, and chances are you're not going to be prepared for the next opportunity that comes along. So that was super valuable to me. There have been some more personal ones where, guys have advised me about like how long should I stay at a club, or, the politics of navigating situations like that. And they've just always said that as a young player, you have to break out of the young player mold. Um, because if you are always seen as that young player, then clubs will never take you seriously no matter what you do, and especially the club that you start at.
Mm.
So yeah, I think it's just like provided food for thought. It doesn't mean you go out and try to ruin everything or make everyone's life chaotic so that you're looked at differently. But I think you should also know how people are looking at you, and how can you make the most out of the team environment while also protecting yourself when you need to.
Yeah, okay. That's solid advice. Wow. All right. So,
I
secondly,
I was surrounded by some OGs, man. Like
yeah, they kicked some good game.
they've been around.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. All right. Second question from Instagram, and you probably might have been asked this before too, but what it has been your favorite goal so far?
I mean, I'm gonna go back to U20s
Okay.
and with the national team at the World Cup, because that was just such an important goal for me mentally. Round of 16 against New Zealand, I took a ball out of the air. The ball was like super high in the air. Took it down with a man on my back, turned him, and rifled a shot. And it was a 2-0 goal, so pretty important goal in terms of starting to close that game out and send our team to the quarters. But I said it earlier, that was a tough tournament for me. I was kind of brought in and very much on the fringes, and to get a surprise start in the round of 16 and to respond that way. And the way like everyone celebrated, like they understood what that meant to me, and they were just
Yeah.
happy for the team and for me. And it was just like a special, 10-15 seconds. You know, I would my first goal with Portland was also very special. It wasn't the
Hmm.
nicest goal I scored, but it was it was reassuring to know that I could score goals against men when I had the first 6 months of my rookie season not playing at all. And then my nicest goal might be, in 2022 against FC Dallas, just like a right-footed shot from outside the 18, as a left-footed player. Um, I've scored some nice ones in practice, but fortunately, I was taught a quick lesson. I mean, I used to practice like dribbling and taking shots from outside the 18 my rookie season, and I had an assistant coach tell me, "Why are you doing that?"
Hmm.
And it's like after the season that ended, he's like, "Why are you doing that?" I'm like, "Well, because like I just want to be able to score." And he was like, "Well, every goal you're going to score, 90% of them are going to be from inside 10 yards, and they're going to be one touch finishes. So you need to stop doing that basically, and start focusing on your movement in the box, focus on one touch finishing. And that's how you're really going to make a living." And to his credit, that's been how I've made my living.
Yeah.
And it's made me a little bit too reliant on service and maybe taken away a little bit from my creativity mentally, and something that's tough to fully get back. But um, every striker has to be good in the box. Every striker has to be able to finish one touch in
Yeah.
any way. And so it was very valuable advice.
Yeah. You've been getting a lot of advice. You've given us some free game for sure right now. All right. Last question from the fans. Who has been kind of the toughest player you've played against? So I guess in your case, it'd probably be maybe what, a center back?
Yeah, it's a tough one. Um,
We could date this back even to high school.
yeah, I think the toughest player my team has played against is Ricky Puig with the
Hmm.
Galaxy. He just has a way of skipping by us and drawing fouls and
Hmm.
making the Galaxy tick. It's something that we're acutely aware of, and we've gotten better at shutting him out of games, but it's still hard. That's a credit to him and something that we'll have to deal with the rest of the season. And I know that the guys who are gonna have to get him, it's a team effort, but I know the guys who have to get him are going to be up for it and continue to find ways to grow in that regard. And then for me,
Hmm.
I think my hardest game was probably against Gonzalez Perez in the Atlanta final in 2018. Uh,
Hmm.
Partially because I was a little bit young and he was experienced, but yeah, he had my number, and it forced me to learn a lot about how to be a striker against different types of center backs for sure.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's never, a loss or anything. It's a lesson. So, like you just said, it taught you how to go against center backs that are built like that and kind of causing you problems, how to navigate all that.
But it's
But
also mental. For me, it was the mental side. Like, yeah, he's a big guy. He's like
hmm
physically imposing, but it's the way in which he thought quicker than me, and
hmm
that was what I most needed to learn. It was a big platform to have to learn that, but
Yeah,
so
yeah, yeah.
let's try.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, hey, Jeremy, thank you for joining, spending some time sharing stories, giving, energy into this recording and to this episode. I know whoever listens to it, obviously you gave a lot of pieces of advice from what you've heard over your time, professional and everything. So if it could, influence and positively affect a single child out there right now who's got dreams to, do what you're doing. And we're not even just talking about ball, we're talking about, off the pitch as well, because everyone wants to, you know, acquire that high platform as a professional, but it's also good to use it in a positive manner as well. But yeah, man, thank you again. Thank you for, everything really.
No, appreciate you, and like you said, if it even influences one person positively, then that's more than worth it, and more than worth your time, my time, and hopefully, your platform continues to grow.
Yeah, I appreciate the words.